Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 42. All right, we have two articles tonight. One from yesterday about another accuser named Kiki who had broke her silence on the Dr. Oz show. It's an article that I was going to read yesterday, but I figured I'd save it for today. And it just gives us more context, once again, of another young lady who was abused by this man. And what it also does is it also gives power to the other accusations, right? The more people that have come out and said that this man abused them, the more we have to take it seriously, especially when they show up with evidence. It's one thing for somebody to accuse somebody and say, hey, look, you did so-and-so. Without evidence, and when it's, your word against their word, well, it ends up in the court of public opinion. But when there's actual evidence and there's corroborating witnesses and there's receipts and there's, big time smoke, well, that's when people tend to get in trouble. And if Virginia Roberts and the rest of these girls are telling the truth about Epstein, then that makes you think that they're telling the truth about everything else, right? All right, so this article is from the New York Post. The headline is, Epstein accuser Kiki breaks silence on Dr. Oz. So she was on the Dr. Oz show, and for the first time speaking in public, she told her story. Let's see what she had to say. A former New York model spoke for the first time Thursday about being abused by Jeffrey Epstein, saying it completely derailed her life and left her suicidal. Definitely. You see that's a common theme with not just Jeffrey, with this Epstein case, but with survivors of this sort of abuse in general. You see that a lot of them have really hard lives after they've suffered this sort of abuse, right? And it's really sad to see, and I wish that there were more resources for people like that and there wasn't such a stigma for people who have been abused so that they could come forward and they could get the help that they need. But instead, they're forced to live their lives in complete fear of these abusers, and it's absolutely disgusting to me. He took my spirit and he broke it, the accuser, only using the name Kiki, told TV's Dr. Oz of her abuse 15 years ago, calling it an incredible trauma that totally altered my life. It's still trauma that affects me every single day of my life, she said. Kiki is one of two former hostesses who say they were recruited in 2004 while working at the now-shuttered Union Square Hangout coffee shop and are now suing the money man's estate. She was 19, she was 19, but told she had to lie to Epstein that she was even younger, she claims. Epstein then sexually abused her for about 25 minutes. After paying her for a massage at his Manhattan mansion, she told the show, saying he then got up and left as if nothing had happened. The shame and humiliation sparked a nervous breakdown, she said, telling Dr. Oz the impact was devastating. I didn't want to leave my house. I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't sleep. I turned to substance abuse, said the accuser, previously only known as Jane Doe 2 in her court filing. And if you've been listening to the show since the beginning, until these names became super public, I never really mentioned any of the girls' names on the podcast, including Virginia Roberts. But once they started, coming out in public and talking, in front of the cameras and telling their stories, I thought that it's okay, it's time to use their names, and then, people could put a face to these allegations, and it makes it more real. When you could look at somebody and see the pain that they're in and see what they've been through, it makes it more real, and you're more apt to pay attention to what they're talking about. I had a lot of suicidal thoughts and went into a very manic depressive state. It completely derailed my life. He took my spirit and he broke it, and it's taken me a long time to get it back. She also took aim at alleged co-conspirators, now at the heart of the ongoing investigation after Epstein's August alleged suicide in a Manhattan lockup. They know what they've done, she told the show. What amount of money was worth it for you to look the other way? And that's really what it comes down to, right? Like I said, with the enablers. I mean, what's the motivation for looking the other way unless you're involved? I can't even imagine knowing that my boss or my coworker or anyone close to me was involved in something like this and not running my fat yap. My fat yap would be running 4 million miles per minute after I pummeled them. Because I have news for you. If I knew what this dude was up to, and that I saw him do it, or even had any whiff of his behavior, 3-piece and a soda on delivery coming up. And then I'd be calling the cops after I got my licks in. Kiki, joined by her attorney, Lisa Bloom, told the show that Coffee Shop had been our hunting ground for recruiters because most of the staff were models. Her young, beautiful recruiter, who she guessed was at most in her early 20s, initially appeared to be just another customer, she said. She just stood in her tracks and she looked at me and she said, "Wow, you're really beautiful," Kiki recalled, saying it seemed kind of odd. Then there you go, the opening stage of the grooming process, right? Flattery, giving them whatever they want. Oh, you're beautiful, this, that, the other thing. Bring them into the atmosphere and then continue the process until you unleash your disgustingness on them. She started telling me about her client and who she worked for. She said, referring to Epstein as very generous, wealthy, and prominent. He was very good to people. He was very generous. He'd like to help young girls with their careers, she says she was told. Yeah, I bet he would. It's very obvious that he'd like to help young girls, right? What he would like to do is use young girls as sex objects because he's a depraved lunatic. She was told nothing bad would happen, and she just had to give him a simple massage, and that he likes young pretty girls. And we all know, code word for massage with Jeffrey Epstein and his sick tribe, his sick people, his sick group, his sick traffickers, code word for sex. I thought, okay, well, this is New York. That's not that unusual, she recalled. There was a process of grooming where the recruiter wined and dined me, she said. Well, what do you know? She said, just be sure, if he asks you how old you are, make sure you don't say you're older than 17 or 18. Even though I was only 19 at the time, Kiki recalled. She wiped away tears as she recalled finally going to Epstein's Upper East Side mansion and being taken to a dimly lit small room with a massage table in the middle of it. A few minutes later, he walks in with a towel around his lower half and doesn't really greet me, she said. I proceeded to give him a massage. As time went on, he began to sexually abuse me. That went on for about 25 minutes, and then he got up and left as if nothing had happened, she said. She felt trapped and could not leave because this man's presence was so intimidating, she said. When you freeze, you don't know how to process what's going on right now, physically or mentally, she said, adding that it felt like something very routine for Epstein. It was a well-oiled machine at that point, she said, calling the experience degrading, humiliating, and shameful. In your mind at the time, to allow someone to violate you like that, when in reality you didn't have the power to say no. You didn't have that power to fight, she said. The recruiter only contacted her one more time, saying Epstein really liked you a lot. He'd like to see you again, she said. Honestly, I'm not sure that he had a conscience, Kiki said. In the short time that I was face-to-face with him, and then hearing about all the things that happened afterwards, I think that he didn't think about other people. So to him, it probably was a good time because it satisfied his impulses or his urges. Well, yeah, unfortunately, deviants like this don't look at people as human beings. You're just a tool for them to get off, however it is they may want to get off. Pretty sick. However, the other person or other victim was feeling it didn't matter because it was all about him. It satisfied what he needed, and that's all that mattered. Everyone is disposable to him, expendable, she continued. Kiki said she was inspired to finally speak out by all the women that came before me. Their strength and courage and bravery inspired me tremendously, she told the show, but I also felt this social and moral responsibility as a woman, as a victim, and now a survivor, to do what they did for me and sort of pay it forward. If there's any way, even if I only touch one person or inspire one more person to come forward, whether it's specifically with this case or they're a victim of someone else, then I have fulfilled my obligation and have done the right thing. Her attorney, Bloom, said that Kiki had been tricked into a commercial sex act that was like a casting couch situation. She said another dozen victims are in talks to join her lawsuit that was filed in August in Manhattan federal court. He may have escaped it on the criminal side. He's not going to escape it in death on the civil side, Bloom told the show. Now, I'm not a big fan of Lisa Bloom per se, but like I said, when it comes to this Jeffrey Epstein case, all of these stories are all so similar that it's hard to discount any of these girls that come forward. And I think that we have to be cautious that we're not duped by, people who really weren't abused by him, because obviously there's a lot of money involved. And there's going to be a lot of duplicitous people who want their hand in that money, right? Who want to share, who want a piece, who believe they deserve some of that for whatever reasons. So we have to really be cautious about that, because as much as we want to pitchfork, tar, and bring the whole thing down around everybody's head, we have to make sure that we do the same thing that we talk about, and that's, we have to make sure that we're respecting the process of of what goes on here. We have to make sure we respect these girls. And I think that every single girl who has been abused by Epstein needs to come forward, and they need to be given a platform, and they need to be able to bring their evidence forward, and we need to listen to them, and we need to do it soberly, and we need to make sure that we're not talking down to them and degrading them the way Alan Dershowitz was trying to do on Fox News. So, that's just something we all need to keep in mind, that these are human beings we're talking about here. And I know we all get caught up in the case and we all want justice, but at the end of the day, these girls are the ones who deserve true justice in this case. And if that justice isn't Epstein going to prison, then it needs to be his associates who go to prison in his stead, and every single dollar that is on file of his needs to be distributed to these victims of abuse. The next article we have is an article that just broke a little while ago. The headline is, Jeffrey Epstein's guards could face criminal charges, sources say. Federal prosecutors in New York are considering bringing criminal charges against 2 correctional officers responsible for guarding Jeffrey Epstein on the night of his death, a source familiar with the investigation told CBS News. Epstein, who was 66 at the time of his death, was found unresponsive in his cell in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August 10th. Prosecutors offered the officers the opportunity to plead guilty to the charges, but the officers declined the offer, the source added. The source said it was not a plea deal. So, what I'm hearing through the grapevine in this story, I do have some sources in New York, but they're not really involved in this case. So what I'm hearing from my sources is that these guards are going to be charged. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when at this point. So I guess we'll see, right? The medical examiner's office ruled Epstein's death a suicide by hanging on August 16th, but that didn't stop conspiracy theories about his death or questions about how such a high-profile prisoner could have died on the correctional center's watch. So they had to add that conspiracy theory in there, right? They have to degrade you at every single turn. If you don't believe their narrative, you must be degraded. Now, all of a sudden, you're Mel Gibson from the movie Conspiracy Theory. You're Alex Jones. You're running around in a tinfoil hat talking about reptilians. That's what they want people to believe. They do not want any questions to go against their narrative, and if the questions come against their narrative, they go on the assault, right? They ruin lives, and they could care less. Consolidation of power and their narrative being pushed to hell with the rest of us. Epstein, who had been charged with sexually abusing a number of underage girls, had been placed on suicide watch the month before his death after he was found on his cell floor with bruising on his neck. But multiple sources said that Epstein had been taken off suicide watch after about a week and placed into a high-security housing unit where he was supposed to be checked on every 30 minutes. Both the FBI and the Justice Department's Inspector General are investigating the death. The Department of Justice declined to comment. Of course they did. Why would the Justice Department comment? They're too busy trying to frame the cover-up themselves, I'm guessing. This information should have been released right away. The camera situation, the logs, the guards who were asleep, the guard who was there who wasn't even supposed to be there. Who is he or she? Why haven't we heard more about them? There's no context to these stories. Do you see what I'm talking about, guys? Do you see what they do? They fire off these stories, they give you this salacious headline, and then there's no meat with your potatoes. And that's what they continuously do. And once again, that's why we do the daily drop. That's why we stay on top of it. That's why we follow every lead. That's why we go after it the way we do. And that's why we're not going to stop. We are not going to stop. We're going to keep going. Daily drops, episodes like the one from earlier today to shed more light on things. And it's just going to keep rolling because this case is not going away anytime soon. This case is not going away until there's justice. This case is not going away until we have our answers. And together, we got a big job ahead of us, right? This isn't going to be easy, the mainstream narrative, but more and more people are waking up to what's going on. More and more people are starting to understand that it's the same players in every single misery play that we deal with on a world stage. The intelligence agencies are incredibly devious, and their buddies in the media who are complicit with their nonsense are even worse. A free media was supposed to be our buffer between us and these elites. But we see that that's not the case. All that the media has become are other elites protecting other elites. There's no hard work being done in the media anymore. All there is garbage reporting for the most part. But that's okay. That's where we come in. We slide in, we pick up all the pieces, we put the jigsaw puzzle together so that we can view the whole entire thing in context and not just little piece here, little piece there. Let's drip this news out. We'll talk about one story and then we won't talk about it for 3 weeks later. And by the time we talk about it, people have forgotten about that and we've moved on to the next story, the next 24-hour news cycle. Well, that party is not going to happen here. That is not going to happen around these parts. That dog does not hunt around these parts, and if you think it's going to, you are drunker than Cooter Brown, my friend. All right, folks, look, like I always say, I'm pumped to have all of you here. I couldn't be more excited to be rocking with you guys on this whole entire journey because that's what it's becoming, right? We're deep now. We're deep. We're talking over 50 episodes on this podcast, and we're only 2 months in. We got so much more to go. It's going to take a while, but you know what? Together, I think we could do it. You know what I'm going to say, right? I haven't used the tagline in a while, but some of the fans had sent some emails and they were wondering what happened to it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop one for you guys. Together we could make media great again. All right? Let's hold them accountable. Let's not buy into their BS. Don't tune into their crap shows. It's why? For what? So you can have more gaslighting occur? So you can be told how to think, to be programmed? Hell no, we're way past that. It's the year 2020 almost. We have other options. The media is obsolete at this point. We're doing the end around on them, right, boys and girls? All right, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode, another daily drop. If there's breaking news, we'll report on that as well. Until then, I'll see you later.